wild rice, Mexican, Gordon Ramsay's, mushroom soup, Shea 007. I am Mohammed Khaled Zubair. I made this video for all. Wild rice mushroom soup. The delicious mushroom flavors in this soup are joined with a nutty richness that is sure to satisfy. It's important that you use the right kind of rice here, as the basmati or jasmine rice you have in your cupboard will not do. Not only is wild rice an amazingly healthy food, but it's pleasantly chewy and it has the essential nutty flavor that we mentioned earlier. You'll also be using two kinds of mushrooms for this recipe, porcini mushrooms and another of your choice. Creamy would be a good choice, but follow your heart, or rather your stomach. Delicious and filling wild rice mushroom soup. This soup is nutty, rich and filling with fantastic mushroom flavor. It's hard to beat a comforting bowl of soup on a chilly day. Vegetarian wild rice mushroom soup does just that by warming your belly with earthy mushrooms and hearty, chewy wild rice. Our soup is very filling and incredibly flavored with two kinds of mushrooms, wine, shallots and plenty of nutty wild rice. Ingredients needed to make wild rice mushroom soup. For the wild rice: salt, garlic clove, fresh thyme, sprigs, water, wild rice, or use a wild rice blend. For the soup base: dried porcini mushrooms, unsalted butter, olive oil, fresh mushrooms, any kind will do in the soup. I usually select whichever small mushroom looks best, such as creamy, button or white, and baby bella. Shallots or a small leek. We often make the soup with either one, or even a small sweet onion. Garlic, tomato paste, all-purpose flour, vegetable broth. Use low sodium or salt-free dry white wine, heavy cream or half and half. Soy sauce. For the parsley, butter, optional. Unsalted butter, salt, ground black pepper, fresh parsley leaves. What is wild rice? Wild rice is actually a semi-aquatic grass grown and cultivated in the Great Lakes region of the United States. It contains an impressive amount of several key nutrients, including protein, manganese, phosphorus, magnesium, and zinc. Wild rice contains more protein than other types of rice, but has the same amount of fiber as brown rice. You can find wild rice with other rice and grains, or in the bulk bins of your local grocery store. It's also available from Amazon, of course. Where to find dried porcini mushrooms in the grocery store? Most well-stocked grocery stores and even Walmart carry dried porcini mushrooms. They are often found in a small clear plastic clamshell container in 1/2 ounce portions. However, each store may stock them in different departments. Save yourself a little time hunting and gathering and ask the customer service representative at your store where to find dried mushrooms. I usually find dried porcini mushrooms in the Italian specialty section with the capers and pasta. Dried mushrooms might also be in the produce section with the garlic, onions or the fresh mushrooms. Finally, check in the canned vegetable aisle where you find canned mushrooms. Porcini mushrooms are worth the effort. How to make wild rice mushroom soup. 1. First, prepare the wild rice. Combine salt, thyme, garlic and water in a medium saucepan. Bring to a boil and add the wild rice. Cook for 30 to 35 minutes. Discard the thyme sprigs and garlic, and drain the rice. Set aside. 2. Place the dried porcini in a 2-cup heat-proof measuring cup. Cover with boiling water and set aside to soften. 3. Next, brown the mushrooms in a stainless soup pot or light-colored, inside, Dutch oven. I like to use a light-colored pot because I'm able to see the brown bits on the bottom and better tell when they're done. Add the garlic, shallots and tomato paste. sauté till the copyright briefly, then add the chopped, softened porcini. 4. Sprinkle flour over the vegetables and cook until a dark fond forms on the bottom of the pot. 5. Next, pour the wine over the vegetables and deglaze the bottom, scraping up any brown bits. 6. Add the vegetable broth and porcini soaking liquid to the soup pot. Bring to a boil and simmer for 15 minutes. 7. While the soup is simmering, make the parsley butter if using. 8. Stir in the wild rice and cook for 10 minutes more. Finally, remove from the heat and add the cream and soy sauce. 9. Serve immediately with a dollop of parsley butter and a hunk of crusty artisan bread. If stored for several days, the rice will eventually soak up some of the liquid. This is not a bad thing, however, and only makes the soup thicker and more stew-like. Add a splash of additional vegetable broth to thin, if preferred. Tips for making a deeply flavored, golden-hued soup. The first few steps of this recipe are easy but critical to building the best flavor. If you don't cook the mushrooms properly, they'll end up gray and therefore their full potential for flavor will be diminished. First, spread the mushrooms out in the hot butter and olive oil. Even though all the mushrooms will not fit in a single layer, most of them will be browned properly. Cook undisturbed until the moisture is released and evaporated, and the mushrooms are dark brown on the bottom. This step takes 8 to 10 minutes. Next, and most importantly, cook the floured vegetables until a dark fond forms on the bottom of the pot. This is just like making amazing gravy by starting with a dark roux. Finally, deglaze the pot with white wine. Then scrap up all those flavorful brown bits. These simple little steps build flavor, and, as a result, make a big difference in the finished soup. Shortcuts: for example, you can purchase pre-sliced, pre-cleaned fresh mushrooms to speed the prep time. Also, plan ahead and cook the wild rice, then refrigerate until needed. Finally, you can buy a pre-cooked wild rice product like this cultivated wild rice pouch sold at Target stores. Simply open the pouch and then add it to the soup. Earthy, hearty and seriously comforting, this wild rice mushroom soup is for mushroom lovers. We love both wild rice and mushrooms and incorporate them into our recipes every chance we get. In other words, if you're a mushroom lover too, try these amazing recipes. Skillet chicken and mushroom wine sauce is our most popular recipe year after year. Serve over wild rice, mashed potatoes or noodles for an incredible meal the whole family will love. And, all our readers say you should double the sauce, it's that good. Chicken wild rice casserole is another personal favorite of mine, and I bet it will be one of yours, too. Creamy chicken wild rice soup is another hearty soup with a nutty bite from the wild rice and a wonderful, flavor-packed broth. And finally, wild rice and mushroom pilaf is a deliciously filling side dish that goes great with just about any meal. Enjoy. Prep time, 30 minutes. Cook time, 1 hour 15 minutes. Total time, 1 hour 45 minutes. Yield, 8 servings. Course, soup. Ingredients. For the wild rice: 1 teaspoon salt, 1 fresh thyme sprig, 1 clove garlic peeled and cut in half, 6 cups water, 1 cup wild rice or wild rice blend, 6 ounces. For the soup: 1 ounce dried porcini mushrooms, 1 tablespoon unsalted butter, 2 tablespoons olive oil, 12 ounces small fresh mushrooms sliced, cleaned of dirt, tough stems removed, 2 large shallots diced, or 1 small leek, 1 clove garlic minced, 1 teaspoon tomato paste, 2 tablespoons all-purpose flour, 4 cups low-sodium vegetable broth, 32 ounces, 1 cup dry white wine, 8 ounces, 1/2 cup heavy cream, 4 ounces, 1 tablespoon soy sauce. For the parsley butter: 4 tablespoons unsalted butter softened, 3 tablespoons parsley leaves chopped, 1 teaspoon fresh ground black pepper, 1/4 teaspoon sea salt. Instructions. To prepare the wild rice: 1. Combine the salt, thyme, sprig, clove of garlic and 6 cups cold water in a medium, heavy-bottom saucepan. Bring to a boil and add the wild rice. Reduce the heat to medium-low but maintain a steady boil. Cover and cook until the rice is almost tender, about 35–40 minutes. Remove the thyme stems and garlic clove and discard. Drain the rice through a fine mesh strainer. Cover to keep warm and set aside. To prepare the soup: 1. While the wild rice is cooking, prepare the remaining ingredients. Place the dried porcini mushrooms in a 2-cup heat-proof measuring cup. Carefully pour 1½ cups boiling water over the mushrooms. Stir and set aside to soften, about 15 minutes. Remove the porcini from the hot water using a slotted spoon, reserving the soaking liquid. Chop the porcini and set aside. 2. In a large soup pot or light-colored Dutch oven, melt 1 tablespoon butter and 2 tablespoons olive oil over medium-high heat. Add the sliced fresh mushrooms, not porcini, and stir to coat. Distribute the mushrooms to cover the bottom of the pot. Not all mushrooms will be touching the bottom. Cook the mushrooms, undisturbed, until their moisture is released and then evaporates, and turn a deep golden brown, about 8 to 10 minutes. Stir and continue cooking until crusty bits start to form on the bottom of the pot. 3. Add the shallots, minced garlic and tomato paste to the mushrooms. Cook stirring constantly until the garlic is fragrant and the shallots start to soften, about 2 minutes. 4. Stir the chopped porcini to the soup pot. Sprinkle the flour over the cooking vegetables. Cook, stirring constantly, until the flour sticks to the bottom of the pot and turns golden brown. This fond is essential to building flavor. Slowly add the wine and deglaze the pot, scraping up any brown bits. Add the vegetable broth and reserved porcini liquid, pouring slowly so you leave any grit behind. Discard the dirt and grit. Bring the soup to a boil. Reduce the heat to medium-low to maintain a steady simmer. Cook for 15 minutes. 5. Add the cooked wild rice to the soup and cook for 10 minutes. Remove from the heat and add the cream and soy sauce. Stir until combined. Serve immediately with a dollop of parsley butter on each bowl, if using. For the parsley butter: 1. Combine 4 tablespoons very soft butter, chopped parsley, black pepper and sea salt in a small bowl. Serve each bowl of soup with a spoonful of parsley butter on top. Recipe notes: wild rice. The wild rice can be made ahead, cooled and refrigerated until needed. You can use all wild rice, or a wild rice blend in this recipe. Also, wild rice can be made in a rice cooker according to the manufacturer's instructions, if desired. To make ahead, prepare the wild rice and refrigerate. Make the soup up through step number 4. Cool and refrigerate until needed. Rewarm the mushroom soup until steaming. Add the cooked wild rice and simmer for 10 minutes, stirring occasionally. Off heat, add the cream and soy sauce and serve. Inspired by a recipe on myrecipes.com. Nutrition information is calculated using an ingredient database and should be considered an estimate. When multiple ingredient alternatives are given, The first listed is calculated for nutrition. Garnishes and optional ingredients are not included. Nutrition. Calories, 283 kilocalories. Carbohydrates, 25 grams. Protein, 6 grams. Fat, 16 grams. Saturated fat, 8 grams. Polyunsaturated fat, 1 gram. Monounsaturated fat, 6 grams. Trans fat, 0.3 grams. Cholesterol, 36 milligrams. Sodium, 516 milligrams. Potassium, 363 milligrams. Fiber, 3 grams. Sugar, 3 grams. Vitamin A, 587. Vitamin C, 4 milligrams. Calcium, 34 milligrams. Iron, 1 milligram. Mexican mushroom soup. This recipe includes instructions not only for the soup, but also for fish in lime and chili dressing to be served with it. Of course, you can just make the soup if you like, but it does make a great pair with the fish too. The soup includes shiitake and oyster mushrooms, which both give a great umami flavor. This is augmented by several chili peppers, which you'll char for extra smokiness, and a liberal helping of cilantro, plus bacon and chicken stock. You can almost taste it just from the description. Recipes. Last night I once again delved into Zerla's Veracruz, this time chaffing up soprasatas, mushroom soup, and Syrian chili lemon, fish with fresh lime and chili dressing. These are two dishes that made me realize once again that good recipes are like good novels, pieces of art that leave me marveling. I didn't know flavors like these existed. I started with the lime and chili dressing, following the recipe almost exactly. The fresh tomatillos and lime really make this recipe. I can't emphasize enough the taste fresh squeezed lime juice adds to this dressing, and don't cheat yourself by using bottled. 6-8 medium tomatillos, husks removed and rinsed. 2 teaspoons salt, or to taste. 2 jalapeno or serrano chilies, stemmed and seeded. I used only half a jalapeno pepper, 4 garlic cloves. A 1/2 small white onion, coarsely chopped. 8 cilantro sprigs, about 1-2 tablespoons chopped. A 1/2 cup freshly squeezed lime juice, about 2-3 limes. A 1/4 cup water, I didn't use any. Put the tomatillos in a pot, cover with water and bring to a boil, then reduce to medium heat and cook until they change color, about 5 minutes. Drain and let cool to room temperature. Once they are cooled, simply combine all the ingredients in a blender and process. The recipe says to add water if needed, so you end up with a slightly soupy consistency, but mine didn't need water. Set aside. Next, I moved on to the soup. Here, I made some adaptations according to the ingredients I could find. 3 dried Anaheim chilies, stemmed and seeded. The recipe calls for 3 dried pasilla or mulatto chilies, but I couldn't find those at our local grocery store. 4 cups chicken stock. I used 2 cups of homemade chicken stock left over from the Mexican chicken soup I'd made earlier, and 2 cups of store-bought chicken broth. The recipe calls for all homemade stock, and it definitely adds to the flavor. 6 ounces bacon, diced. 3 cloves garlic, minced. 8 ounces shiitake mushrooms, coarsely chopped. 8 ounces oyster mushrooms, coarsely chopped. 9 sprigs of cilantro. Recipe calls for pezote sprigs, but our grocer didn't have those. The recipe says you can use cilantro in a pinch, so I did. Salt to taste. The recipe calls for you to griddle dry the chilies, which essentially means you rinse the stemmed and seeded chilies and then place them on a medium-hot griddle or pan, turning frequently until the moisture evaporates and you start to smell the aroma of the chilies. Took no more than 30 seconds for my chilies. The recipe cautions against scorching the chilies, which would result in a bitter taste. Then soak the chilies in 2 cups of chicken stock for 20 minutes. Process in a blender until smooth and run through a strainer into a bowl, pressing all the liquid through. Set aside. Fry the bacon over medium-high heat until crisp and then remove to a paper towel to drain, reserving 2 tablespoons of the bacon grease to the soup pot. Heat the grease over medium-high heat and add the onion and garlic, cooking until the onion is translucent and golden, about 5 minutes. Stir in the mushrooms and cook for 2–3 minutes until they begin to soften. Add the bacon, chili mixture, the rest of the stock, and the cilantro. Cook uncovered over medium-low heat for about 20 minutes. While the soup cooked, I fried about 2 pounds of cod in about a 1/2 cup of rippling olive oil, flipping several times until touched with a light golden brown. Next time I will use a firmer fish that doesn't break apart so easily. The recipe says red snapper, grouper, sea bass or Pacific rockfish work well. I've read that trout also works well with this sauce. When the fish is almost done, drain the oil from the pan and add the lime and chili dressing and cook for about 5 minutes or until fish is done. The recipe calls for adding 2 tablespoons of butter at this point, but unfortunately I forgot the dressing was divine without it, but I would have loved to have tested it with the butter. The flavors in these 2 recipes were amazing, definitely worth trying if you are looking for some authentic south-of-the-border culinary experiences. Gordon Ramsay's mushroom soup. Chef Ramsay might have an unpredictable temper, but he really does know his stuff when it comes to cooking. This soup uses deeply flavorsome porcini mushrooms to build up its taste, along with the registered chai, rather than standard cream, to make it creamy. Once the preparation work's done, then cooking the soup itself is very straightforward, so prepare for winter comfort served up in a bowl. Everybody wants to have a comforting bowl of creamy soup in winter, and Gordon Ramsay's mushroom soup is just that. This healthy soup recipe has no rocket science involved and is really simple to make. You need just half an hour to prep and that too, to make the mushroom stock. Once that's done, it's smooth sailing from there. A bowl of hot mushroom soup is not only delicious but also healthy. Mushrooms are low in calories but high in protein, fiber, and antioxidants. They are also known to lower the risk of heart diseases and Alzheimer's. They are also low in sodium, so they are also good for people with hypertension. To make Gordon Ramsay's mushroom soup, boil water and pour them over the mushrooms. Set them aside for 30 minutes. After that, heat oil in a pan and cook onions and garlic in it. Then, add mushrooms, the mushroom stock, and thyme to it and cook for 30 minutes. Blend this mixture to make a puree. Pour it into a bowl and top with cream, lemon juice, and dried. You can also use dashi or its substitute, dried shiitake mushroom soup stock, to enhance the flavor of your soup. Of course, this is just a suggestion. This was only a snippet for Gordon Ramsay's mushroom soup. Find the complete recipe below. But first, check out some other recipes from the chef's delight. 1. Gordon Ramsay's rocket mushroom bacon quiche. Looking for a French cuisine-based dish to kickstart a family gathering? Search no further and give a try to the rocket mushroom and bacon quiche by Gordon Ramsay. 2. Gordon Ramsay's stroganoff is a dish of Russian origin. It is made with beef broth. Mushrooms play a strong role in adding an exquisite flavor to the recipe. 3. Gordon Ramsay's vegetarian lasagna packed with the goodness of veggies like zucchini, bell pepper and more. This dish will hook you up for life in the first bite. 4. Gordon Ramsay's mashed potatoes. The consistency of mashed potatoes is something super tricky to get right. Gordon Ramsay's recipe for mashed potatoes helps you attain the perfection. What equipment will need for Gordon Ramsay's mushroom soup? Saucepan A. Use a saucepan to cook the mushrooms for garnish. Spatula A. Use a spatula to stir and combine the ingredients for the soup. Pan A. Use a large pan to make the soup. You can also use a large pot or Dutch pot to make this soup. Blender A. To blend the ingredients for the soup, you need a blender. Preparation time 40 minutes. Cooking time 40 minutes. Total time 1 hour 20 minutes. What ingredients will you need for Gordon Ramsay's mushroom soup? A. Sent porcini mushrooms. A. Use dried porcini mushrooms for this recipe. Dried porcini mushrooms add a nutty and earthy meatiness to the soup. They are nutritious and have comparatively deeper flavor. A. Sent mushrooms. A. Chop some button mushrooms for the soup. Mushrooms are the main ingredient for this recipe. You can use mixed varieties of mushrooms to make this soup. A. Sent onion. A. Chop an onion to add a slightly sweet flavor to the soup. A. Sent garlic. A. Garlic cloves add a slightly nutty and a basic seasoning flavor to the soup. I've minced 1½ cloves of garlic for this soup. A. Sent butter. A. Butter enhances the texture of this soup and adds more flavors to it. You need to add butter to the oil used for cooking the veggies for soup and to roast the mushrooms. A. Sent thyme. A. Thyme adds herbal flavors to the soup. Use about 3 sprigs of thyme for the soup. You can also use thyme to garnish the soup. A. Sent olive oil. A. Olive oil is the main ingredient to cook the veggies and mushrooms for the soup. You need about 1 ounce of olive oil for this soup. A. Sent chives. A. Chives add fresh earthy flavors to the soup. Add about 2 tablespoons of chopped chives to the pan containing onions. A. Sent cra sesame fresh. A. cra sesame fresh adds a mildly sour taste to the soup and also improves its texture. You might need about 3 tablespoons of cra sesame fresh for this recipe. A. Sent vegetable stock. A. Vegetable stock gives body to the soup. It enhances the taste of this soup and gives it a thick and smooth texture. I've used about 10 ounces of vegetable stock for this soup. A. Sent salt and pepper. A. Enhance the taste of this soup by adding salt and pepper to it. Steps to make Gordon Ramsay's mushroom soup. 1. Cook mushrooms and veggies. Add boiled water to a small bowl containing porcini mushrooms. Now, set a large pan over medium heat. Add olive oil and butter to it. Toss in onions, button mushrooms, minced garlic, and chives. Add thyme and porcini mushrooms along with the mushroom stock. Give them a good stir. 2. Pour in stock after the mushrooms and onions in the pan are soft. Add vegetable stock to it. Let the mixture cook for about 30 minutes on low heat. In another pan, cook mushrooms in olive oil with thyme sprigs in it until the mushrooms are brown. 3. Blend it smooth and serve. Remove the pan from the heat and blend the soup mixture until a smooth creamy soup is formed. Add 2 scoops of creme fraiche to the soup and blend it again. Transfer the soup to the bowl and garnish it with roasted mushrooms, thyme, and creme fraiche. Nutritional Information. Calories 83.5 kilocalories, carbohydrates 10.5 grams, protein 1.7 grams, fat 4.6 grams, saturated fat 0.8 grams, polyunsaturated fat 2.3 grams, monounsaturated fat 1.5 grams, sodium 1019.6 milligrams, potassium 96.1 milligrams, fiber 0.5 grams, sugar 0.5 grams, vitamin A 98.7, calcium 12.6 milligrams, iron 0.5 milligrams. How will Gordon Ramsay's mushroom soup look and taste? Gordon Ramsay's mushroom soup is creamy and delicious, just like any other Gordon Ramsay recipe. It's filled with the flavors of mushrooms and onion with a hint of earthy flavor from thyme and chives. Porcini mushrooms add nutty and earthy notes to this soup. Creme fraiche adds a slightly sour taste and enhances the color and texture of this soup. This mushroom soup recipe is pretty simple. Just make the stock by adding boiling water to mushrooms and set it aside. Then, cook garlic, onions, and mushrooms together. Add stock and then puree the mixture. Ingredients: 50 grams dried porcini mushrooms, 60 grams button mushrooms, chopped, 1 onion, chopped, 1½ cloves garlic, minced 50 grams butter, 3 sprigs thyme, 30 milliliters olive oil, 250 milliliters boiling cream, 2 tablespoons chives, 3 tablespoons Casserole sesame fresh, 300 milliliters of vegetable stock, salt and pepper to taste. Instructions: 1. Boil water in a saucepan and pour it over the porcini mushrooms. Cover the bowl with the mushrooms and set it aside for 30 minutes. 2. Drain them and save the stock for later. 3. Now heat oil and butter in a pan and cook onions and garlic in it with garlic, chives and thyme. 4. Add the button mushrooms and mushroom stock to the pan. 5. Add the vegetable stock to this mixture. Season it with salt and pepper accordingly. 6. Then using a blender, blend all the ingredients until smooth. 7. Pour the soup into a bowl and top it with Casserole sesame fry till the registered J. 8. Your mushroom soup is ready. Notes: if you want your mushroom soup more tasty and mushroomy in taste, then I would definitely recommend you to check out the products of Nature's Rise. Nutrition: serving, 1 cup. Calories, 83.5 kilocalories. Carbohydrates, 10.5 grams. Protein, 1.7 grams. Fat, 4.6 grams. Saturated fat, 0.8 grams. Polyunsaturated fat, 2.3 grams. Monounsaturated fat, 1.5 grams. Sodium, 1019.6 milligrams. Potassium, 96.1 milligrams. Fiber, 0.5 grams. Sugar, 0.5 grams. Vitamin A, 98.7. Calcium, 12.6 milligrams. Iron, 0.5 milligrams. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe my channel. Channel name, Khaled Zubair.